In this video, I'm going to show you how to use Mylio's people tagging tool. This is one of the cooler features in Mylio. So there's a couple of different ways that we can tag people. We'll start off by going to the people tab itself, which is over here on the left-hand side, the little people icon. We'll select that. And we'll see right now, the only square we have is this little untagged square. So if we open that up, we'll see these are all of the images that are untagged. Okay, and then we can actually go to our toolbox down at the bottom, the little hammer and wrench, and select batch face tagging. Now Mylio will scan your library and it will group together faces that it thinks are the same person. It does a pretty good job of this. It does sometimes have a hard time with babies. It kind of thinks most babies are the same person. But as you teach it more and more who's who, it gets better at recognizing people. So in this case, it has grouped together all of these photos of me. And right now we're zoomed out in the photos, which sometimes can be unhelpful when you're face tagging because you might not know who Mylio is referencing in the image. In that case, you can click the three little dots in the upper right-hand corner and turn the zoom to face on. And then we have a closer up of who Mylio is referencing. So then what we can do is select all of the photos. I'm going to click on that little question mark button below just one of them, and I'm going to type in my name. You can add a last name and click create. And you can do that for everybody that it shows here. There is sometimes a miscellaneous little folder here when it's not sure that these faces are the same as anybody else's. But again, as it learns more and more who's who, it'll get better at telling who's who and kind of grouping them together. We can exit out of that. Now, if we go back to our people tagging, we can see here that now there's a square for me. And if I click on that square over here on the right-hand side, there's a bunch of different details that you can add about the person. The one that I think is really cool and great for family history is the relationships. So you can add how people are related to one another, which is pretty awesome. And then you can add little notes as well, which can be helpful, especially if you want to share your photo library with younger generations and family members. And then now that it knows what I look like, we can see there is this little question mark here. And when I hover over it, it says 10 faces to confirm. So Mylio has actually recognized, oh, this is what you look like. And I think that there's more photos of you now that I kind of know what your face looks like. So I can actually open that up and I can see right here, that's one of them. So is that. So is that. I can select multiple and just hit the little check mark. If it wasn't me, you could hit the X or you could hit the little question mark and type in the proper name instead. And then just go through and do that for all of them. You can also just do the batch face tagging again, and it will bring up photos, more photos. Okay, so that's one way to tag by person. Another way is to do so directly on a photo. So let me find a photo here. We'll use this one as an example. Actually, let's use a different one for now. We'll come back to that one. Okay, so this photo, for example, if we click on a photo, and then over here on the right-hand side, look for that little people icon. We'll click on that, and it's going to have circles appear around every face that it detects in the image. We can see that I've already been tagged in this photo. And then these two people haven't because there's a question mark. You will know who you're tagging because their face will have a blue circle around it. So in this case, I can add in information about each person, and then they'll get their own little square in the people view, which we can see here. And it's already detected more images that it thinks are these two people. by doing my batch face tagging. This is a great example. Say, yep, that's her. Yep, that's him. All right. Now, sometimes you may come across a photo. Let me go back to this one, for example, where perhaps you wanted to tag the person that was taking the image, or just tag somebody associated with the photo. Or it might be like these two people in the back here. Their heads are turned, the back of their heads are turned towards us. So Mylio hasn't recognized them as faces because they can't see their faces, but you may still want to tag them. So there's a couple of different ways to do that. The first is in the info panel, which again you pop out by just hitting this little I button in the upper right hand corner. You can scroll down to the people section, and you can, under other people, hit the little plus button and add in another person. That will associate that person with this photo. It won't tag a specific person or face though. If you did want to specifically tag one of these people, for example, we can click and hold, and a little white box will appear around them, and then you can type in their name, and that will tag them specifically in that spot in the photo, so that when you're viewing the photo, you know who that name applies to in the image. Now, let's see, I don't know if I have a good example in here for this. Let me see. We can try this one. So it may be sometimes, especially if you're in a crowded place, that Mylio will recognize a bunch of faces, and you probably are not going to know everybody in the crowd in the background. In which case, you can tag who you know, and then you can hit ignore on just the singular person, or you can, down here in that same people section of the info panel, hit ignore untagged faces, and it will ignore all of the people that you haven't tagged, and that way you don't have all these little circles floating around a million faces in the photo. You can make the circles go away by just clicking on the face tagging again, and they will no longer be there. Now let's say that you accidentally hit ignore and you actually did want to tag somebody, which in this case we'll use the same photo. So I hit ignore on her, but I do want to actually tag her. In that case, I can right click on the photo, and I can, let's see, rescan faces right here. Again, under the people section though, there is also this rescan faces button, and it will rescan the photo, find any face that doesn't have a tag. In this case, it has found her face again, and then we can add her to the photo as well. So a lot of different options, a lot of different ways to tag people, different details you can add. The batch face tagging though is probably the easiest and fastest.